Oryu is a skeptic loser who looks like a deflated Nanami until he moves in with 3 temple sisters and has to choose which to pipe. It all starts when he arrives at the shrine. The tourists think he might be praying to the gods to pass his exams, but Oryu doesn't believe in all that stuff. He'd rather hang out with Tom Cruise and the rest of the science huggers. He then heads up to the temple to introduce himself, but no one seems to be around. Oryu decides to look around when he hears the sound of girls changing in the next room. He narrowly escapes the usual walk-into-plot scene, but the door suddenly flies open, and 3 plot goddesses appear for a second.
Oh my!
The door closes again, and Oryu hopes he can pretend he didn't just experience a second solar system, but the girls return to give him hell for peeping. The girls turn out to be shrine maidens, and Oryu later explains that he's supposed to be moving in with them. The tsundere sister refuses to accept that some creeping Tom would be staying with them, so Oryu asks for the priest to prove it. Unfortunately, their granddad won't be back till the next day. The girls then introduce themselves. There's Asadi, the youngest sister who secretly wants her V card swept aggressively, Yaa, the older sister who sounds like she's permanently on acid, and Yuna, who's got a successful future as a Karen. Oryu is thankful they're all weirdos, so he doesn't have to pretend to play nice with them. His only interest is in the pages of his book. At this, Yuna grudgingly warns him to be on his best behavior if he hopes to get dinner. Later, Yaa shows Oryu to his room, claiming to have cleaned up for his sake. However, when she opens the door to the overstuffed closet, Oryu rushes to save her from being pummeled by garbage. Yuna runs in to check on them and finds Oryu getting buried under Yaa's golden globes, causing her to unleash the beast. Later, Oryu returns to studying when Asadi appears and suggests they get to know each other better. When Oryu refuses her company, Asadi worries that his trouser equipment doesn't work right. She then decides to comb through his luggage for proof that he can get it up at night. Oryu tries to stop her but slips on some shorts and lands right on her. When Yuna comes in to check on them, she finds Oryu's bolt too close to Asadi's nut and turns into Godzilla. Later, Oryu still struggles to study, so he decides to take a potty break. When he sees the light on in one of the rooms, he goes to check who's still up and finds Yuna spread out on the floor. To stop her from catching a cold, he grabs a blanket for her, but Yuna wakes up at the wrong time and thinks he's up to no good. She freaks out, causing the other sisters to walk in on them playing body twisters. They shut the door for their own sanity, but Oryu tries to explain that he prefers his hand over girls, prompting Yuna to scatter salt on his evil. Afterward, they all sit together, and Oryu asks what Yuna was doing up so late. He notices the papers on the table, so the girls explain that they're Omamori charms. Yuna insists that she had to do it alone, so that Oryu's jizz-stained hands would never touch them, making Oryu ask why she would go that far if it doesn't make any money. At that, the girls begin to pull out the red strings from their hair, explaining that shrine maidens help to connect people who need help to the gods. They then make their prayers with the red string wrapped around their hands. Oryu asks if the string is necessary, so they explain that the strings are something their mother left behind. Even though their mother is gone now, the string still helps them connect to her. Yuna asks Oryu what he was doing up to, so he says he was studying as usual. When he says he's trying to get into a prestigious medical school, the girls are surprised that he didn't just want to wank himself to death. The girls tell him that some of the gods are said to grant success in passing exams, and they're in the season of miracles. Apparently, there's a magical star shower happening soon, and legend says that if you let the stardust fall on you, your wish will come true. When Yuna assures him that the gods will surely hear his prayer, Oryu calls it a load of bull. As Oryu explains that the impact of a meteor would turn you into a pancake, Yuna goes pale from his blasphemy. To make it worse, Oryu insists they must have fairy tales for brains, so Yuna finally loses it and tries to perform a ritual to curse the knave fool. Thankfully, Yaa manages to stop her. The next day, more and more visitors come to the shrine while Oryu broods by a tree, lamenting how none of that mambo-jumbo works. Suddenly, he overhears Yuna's atrocious attempt to speak English to a little girl who will go home to have nightmares now. Oryu steps in and fluently tells the girl to accept the talisman, so the girls gladly grabs it and waves them goodbye. Afterward, Oryu offers to teach Yuna some better English, so she doesn't scare off the foreign tourists, but Yuna refuses to take help from him. However, she thanks him for stepping in and promises to study her English more. Suddenly, a bird swoops down and steals her red string. Yuna remembers when her mom handed them those red strings and they instantly became treasures. Now some overgrown mosquito has flown away with it. Later, Yuna looks depressed cause she hasn't found it yet, so her sisters assure her that the gods will surely help them find it later. Oryu suddenly butts in and scolds them for leaving everything to the gods. He insists that no amount of prayer would actually make their wishes come true, and they had to get at their and do it themselves. Yuna fires back and says the gods would never abandon anyone who prays to them for help. As she walks off angrily, she tells him he clearly doesn't belong here. Oryu returns to his room, thinking it's best to stay away from Yuna. However, when the girls go to check on him, they find he's no longer there. Yuna immediately freaks out, and they end up wondering how they can make the two of them get along. Unfortunately, Asadi was too busy searching for any of Oryu's jizz materials to listen to Ya's worries. Suddenly, Ya notices a picture of Oryu and his mom, and Asadi reminds her of what their grandpa told them. Apparently, Oryu had lost his mom when he was young and ended up in an orphanage. They figure that he probably prayed to the gods back then, but got a divine middle finger in return. That's why he doesn't believe in the gods anymore. Asadi then assures Ya that Yuna and Oryu are more alike than they think, while Yuna eavesdrops on them. Meanwhile, Oryu searches all the birds' nests he can find for Yuna's red string. After failing, he decides to try again in the morning, but then he remembers the girls praying and decides to try it out. At the same time, Yuna searches everywhere for Oryu when she finds him praying for her to find her treasure. Yuna joins him and commends him on his prayer, so Oryu apologizes for being an asshat earlier. Yuna apologizes too, and when she sees his dirty hands, she tells him that since he has a little respect for the gods, he can live at the shrine. Just then, the girls show up, relieved to find them, though Asadi is convinced they were secretly taboo humping. They head back to the house together and agree that if a miracle happens, they'll be able to find the red string. At that moment, Oryu is shocked to see the magical star shower occur, so they all stare at it surprised. However, Oryu realizes it's just a meteor shower in cherry blossoms, falling at the exact same time. So much for miracles. The girls wonder how long the stick-up his is and ask if the sight in front of him isn't as beautiful as a miracle. Oryu finally agrees, and while they're talking, Yuna's red strings gets removed from a bird's nest and falls on top of her. The next day, the priest Chidori finally arrives, so the girls tell him everything was fine in his absence. Chidori then welcomes Oryu and explains that once he gets married, he'll take over the role of being priest. When Oryu asks what the hell is talking about, the geezer tells him he'll get to wed and bed one of his granddaughters. Oryu immediately objects and says he only planned on being a freeloader. He adds that he wants to be a doctor, not a priest, but Chidori assures him that being a priest is flexible, so he can work 2 jobs. The girls also object, but when Chidori ignores them, Oryu insists that he won't go through with it. Chidori calmly informs him that he plans to transfer him to a school that would increase his chances of getting into his dream university. Upon hearing this, Oryu begs him to forgive his insolence and asks how many grandkids he wants. Chidori laughs as he walks away, while Oryu plans to find a way to escape any pesky wedding bells. Later, the girls hold an anti-Oryu meeting led by Yuna, who thinks the old man must have dementia. The other girls agree that it would be weird to marry him out of the blue, and Yuna adds that Oryu doesn't even believe in God. They wonder what they can do, so Yuna suggests they find a way to kick him out of the house. After, the operation commences and Yuna tells Oryu he'll have to do housework instead of freeloading. His first task is cooking, so Yuna shows him a fridge emptier than Ye's brain. She figures there's no way he can whip something up with those ingredients, but she stands corrected when he presents a Gordon Ramsay special. The girls quickly stuff their faces, and even though the meal was impeccable, Yuna says he's not off the hook yet. Next up, he's forced to do the laundry. Yuna hopes he'd fold under the heat of the sun, while Ye wonders if it's a good idea to give him access to their plot covers. Surprisingly, Oryu doesn't bat an eyelid at their unmentionables, and it ends up being more of a challenge for the girls to witness. After suffering this self-inflicted embarrassment, Oryu folds the laundry into neat piles that make them look like they were brand new. However, Yuma insists that it's not over yet and is forced to whip out her secret weapon. Oryu will have to clean Ye's room. Ye's room is the spitting image of a pigsty, so Yuna wished him good luck on his mission. Oryu wondered where to start from, as his nose was getting defiled by something rotten. He discovered the source was some oil paintings, since Ye was an art major. Oryu almost lost his life in the process, but he presented a sparkling clean room in the end. Ye felt they should let him stay in the house after putting him through that, and Asadi added that they could use a handymaid too. When Oryu heard this, he thanked them for their short-lived hospitality, but if he had to do housework every day, he wouldn't be able to read for medical school. Because of this, Oryu packs his bags and leaves to achieve his dreams. The girls felt weird about his exit, but Yuna insisted that their plan must have been a great success. However, Ye and Asahi looked sad to see him go. Later on the train, Uryu was back to studying hard, while the girls were secretly stalking him. They tease Yuna for being a softie, though she denies even having a heart. They wonder why Uryu was passionately aiming to be a doctor, and thought it was probably because of his mother. The stalking continued from the station, all the way to a secluded area where the trail ended at a house haunted by crows and bad omens. Yuna worried that Uryu was planning to live in the slums because she kicked him out, but Uryu snuck up on them and scared the salt out of Yuna. They wonder what's up with all the kids, while the kids try to name the planets on their chests. Uryu asked them what they were doing there, but he got interrupted by the owner of the house and a Dr. Mahiru. They head inside and Mahiru explains that she runs the orphanage called Miracle Garden. She thanks the girls for taking in a deadbeat like Uryu and says they're too pretty to be his future wives. She assures them that Uryu has some good qualities and teases him for aiming to be a doctor because of her. Uryu stops her before she mentions what he does at night. Then he insists he's not returning to the shrine or marrying them. Mahiru quickly grabs his mouth and threatens him, reminding him of the strings she pulled to get him a foster home. After, the kids run up to Uryu to show him their paper cranes, and when Uryu looks surprised, another girl named Shireti pops out. Uryu wonders what she's doing there, but she says she was just visiting. The girls wonder who she is, so Uryu explains that she's a childhood friend that used to live there too. Asadi bets Uryu's the reason she dresses like a boy, but Yuna tells her to cut it out. One of the kids shows his paper crane to the girls and says it's for his mom. So Mahiru explains that they also take care of parents whose illnesses make it difficult to care for their kids. That's why they were making paper cranes on strings to send to them. The girls think it's a great idea, but Uryu calls it a waste of time. Yuna tells him he's wrong and tells the kids to ignore the buzzkill while they help them with their cranes. After a while, the girls present a train wreck. Ye's crane was doing way too much. Yuna was too slow with hers and Asadi was too clumsy. The kids gather round and tell Uryu the girls were a waste of twin planets and asks for his help instead. Uryu couldn't resist their pleas and helped them make 1,000 paper cranes. The girls marveled at how good he was, while Uryu lamented wasting his precious time on screaming children. However, when he overheard a kid wondering if the crane would truly help his mom get better, it triggered a memory from his past. He grabbed the paper crane and handed it to the kid, assuring him that when the doctors see the charms, they'll do their best, so the boy cheered up instantly. Mahiru walked in and told the girls that Uryu was so good at paper cranes because he folded thousands of them for his mother. Because of that, he's the one who understands the kids the most. The girls realize that Uryu wants to be a doctor because of the kids, so Shirati adds that Uryu has always been there for them when they're anxious or sad. At that, Mahiru calls the girls' attention and tells them to take good care of Uryu. Later on, the girls continue to play outside with the children, while Mahiru congratulates Uryu on bagging 3 shrine ladies. However, Uryu laments that they wanted him to do all the chores, making it hard for him to study at all. Mahiru says Uryu has always been able to do many things with his hands, but his mouth has had a hard time keeping up. However, she assures him that those 3 girls came all this way because they care about him, and he'd be making a mistake if he thought he wasn't welcome. She then reminds him of when he was a kid and wanted to help her with all the chores or taking care of the kids. Mahiru had told him that she was glad to do it all herself. Uryu smiles and decides not to complain anymore, even if it means doing everything like she did. Mahiru approves and wishes him good luck. Later, the girls tease Uryu for having a crush on Mahiru, but he tells them to shut their pie holes and explains that he owes her his life. He then apologizes for being selfish and leaving the house like that. He offers to do any housework they want him to, so Yuna tells him that they'll become lazy if they do that. So they all offer to help out since they're family now. Uryu gladly accepts, but the girls turn out to be housework. His room was back to square one in less than a day. Asahi didn't understand the concept of using a line, and Yuna could watch paint dry faster than she could cook. Uryu realized there was no hope for the trio of airheads. Just then Chidori popped in and said he was glad Uryu was finally acting like a successor. However, Uryu still planned to do something about that marriage part later. Chidori then suggested that he should have a formal marriage interview with each of his granddaughter to deepen their bonds. Comment, Ton Planets, if you want a part 3. And if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video right here.